So grunt and shape. So the grunt elements are contested ball, aerial power, which we were particularly poor at the beginning of the year. When we did slow the opposition down and force them to kick long out of our forward line, we were very poor at our aerial work. So often we'd lose that contest on the wing, it'd get over the back, and that's when we were done. So aerial power wasn't great early. Our pressure, we rate ourselves as a pressure side. You know, everyone's got to have their DNA. It's got to have their the way that their trademark, the way they see themselves. We're a pressure side. You know, so we're a grunt team, and we proved that through the second half more consistently. And stoppages are an element of grunt. The shape elements that I discussed last year and which we needed to improve at is uncontested ball use. So the ability to kick the ball around, move it around, take uncontested marks, make it difficult for the opposition to slow you down and force you to kick long. Team defence, which takes away uncontested marks from the opposition, so that's a shape element as well, not just a grunt element. And clearly anything in transition. So team defence and ball use are so closely related, and when I talk about that, I'm talking about shape. Pretty clear? So that's the same as last year. Pretty hard for you to see. So this has changed format. So last year, 2015, we were high up, so we were 5th in the competition for the grunt, contested ball. But we were way down here, like minus 18 uncontested possessions, so we felt that our shape was low. So when I presented this to you, it was clear it was an area that we wanted to improve. Against the top 8 sides last year, we were about square with contested ball. Against the top 8 sides this year, we improved that by 4. Just to give you an idea, like Geelong beat Hawthorn by 52 in contested possession on the weekend. Hawthorn beat Geelong with uncontested marks, the shape stuff, by 70 uncontested marks, 2 distinct and separate styles that ended up being 2 points apart. So there's plenty of different ways to skin a cat. We want to try and get the grunt elements right, because we think that's our DNA, that's our trademark, but we also want to improve on our shape. But against top 8 sides last year, we stacked up okay in the grunt, and we stacked up okay again this year. Last year, non-finalists, we did slightly better last year than this year, but still, on the balance of it, in contested ball, we held sway across the 22 rounds. In our shape, last year against the top 8 sides, we were on average let down 35 possessions against them. And these are just numbers, but they're windows into what we're looking at. This year, we were able to square that up a little bit better. Against the non-finalists, we were minus 7 last year and minus 11 this year. So we dropped away for that. And just looking at those numbers, in the first 12 rounds, against sides that finished outside the 8 in the end, we were down 30 uncontested possessions. So our shape, either by ball use or team defence, wasn't able to get it done. And you would have seen that with the way we played. And in the last 10 rounds, and we only played 4 sides that finished outside the 8 in the last 10 rounds, we were plus 25. So our shape improved, and our balance of grunt and shape was better. So at the end of, and I focused here, and this you could say, well, this is very convenient. I'm just showing you the last 10 rounds. Our personnel didn't change that much. We still had plenty of blokes on the sideline that we didn't have access to. So I don't reckon there was a great deal of difference in our personnel between first half and second half, but we got our act together in regards to consistently playing the way that we wanted to play. So our grunt was up there, and our uncontested ball or our shape was a lot better. And we played 6 teams that finished in the top 8 in that last 10 weeks. So we feel like even with modified personnel and with first choice, half a dozen or more first choice players that we didn't have access to, our game style stood up. And some of that is young blokes understanding it, some of that is playing more football together, some of that is not having as many changes from one week to the next. For instance, we had played, by the time we got to the round 4 game, we'd played 32 players in the first 4 rounds. That didn't help us. And even at that point, with 32 players in the first 4 rounds, we brought in Josh Smith and Mason Cox as debutants into Anzac Day, our 33rd and 34th players for the year. That was the extent of how poor we were going at the time, either with our game plan, with our execution, individual form, and the consistency of playing the way that we wanted to play. So that's the last 10 weeks. So we were encouraged by being able to build that. And I think off the back of the first half of the year, it was actually significant that we were able to bandy together, pull together, simplify what we were doing and execute it over 10 weeks. That is the grunt element. So looking in the last 10 rounds, so we were green is good, yellow is middling, red is bad. So top 4, bottom 4, the red is bottom 4. Top 4 is green. So in contested possession differential, clearances, pressure 4, pressure differential and tackling efficiency, we're a top 4 side in that last 10 weeks. Remembering that we played 6 of the finalists in that time. Last 10 rounds again, our stoppage stuff. So top 4 ball up, top 4 throw in, but bottom 4 centre bounce. Is that evident to you? Through the season, and in particular even through the back half of the year. So centre bounce is clearly something that we need to improve on. The best sides, it's one of the most significant differentials in wins and losses. For instance, Geelong kicked 4 goals 1 against Hawthorn on Friday night. Hawthorn didn't score from centre bounce in a 2-point game, fairly significant. Hawthorn actually won more centre bounce clearances than Geelong did, but Geelong went and scored from them. That was despite Hawthorn bringing one of their forwards off the back of the square so that Dangerfield couldn't run out the front. That was even shoring up their defence, they were still able to score 5 times going the other way. And this is a side that have played plenty of footy together, that have got plenty of experienced leadership on field, still weren't able to get it done. But more often than not, they do. So centre bounce, clear area of improvement for us, even in the back half of the year. Shape, remembering, red is bad. Yellow is middling, green is good. So inside 50s 4 and against. We were 7th for inside 50s 4 in the last 10 rounds. We were 4th for defending, for preventing inside 50s against. So that would tell you that we were doing a little bit right in our shape. But the elements of being able to defend it, being able to score from it and being able to defend from it, we need to improve. So it's either the ability to defend our back 50, and we could do it with a goalkeeper, but invariably you get your ball kicked over your head. And there's reasons why we don't do that. It's not that we don't want anyone in the back 50. It's just that we need to get those elements. There's other elements up the field that we can get right to assist that. And our last kick inside 50 and our ability to connect between our mids and forwards was a big issue throughout the year. And although it improved gradually, it wasn't to the standard that we want it to be. Some of that was the consistency of the forward group. And that's something we clearly need to improve on. Scores from turnover, which is really the measure of your shape. We were still only 9th from scores from turnover, and we were 7th from scores from turnover against. So once again, just middling, and we need to improve that. But still big gains on where we were in the previous 2 years. Ball use, something you're interested in. And when we get to the end of this, then you'll get a chance to drill down even further if you wish. So these are numbers, and they will debunk some of your perspectives on our ball use. Before I go, 2 years ago we employed a skill acquisition coach. He's a young kid, 22-year-old. I think I spoke to him. I would have spoken to you about him. The Chris Judd of skill acquisition. He's done a lot of work with the guy who actually learnt from David Rath, who is the guy that's been at Hawthorn, Clarko's right-hand man for the last 9 years. Damien Farrow's another guru or godfather of skill acquisition, has worked at the AES for 15 years. This guy learnt over the last 4 or 5 from those 2 guys, and he's been huge for us. We've adjusted our drill design in pre-season, we've adjusted our drill design in season, and our players are exposed to far more decision-making situations than they ever have been before. So we hardly do any cone-to-cone drills. We're less patterned with our offence. We're more put the players in the right space and trust the players to make better decisions, and we drill that through the pre-season. To me, you'd think if you just coach technique, I always thought if you just coach technique and just get them kicking 100 times just from A to B, that'll make them better kicks. The research will tell you that has an impact, but not as bigger impact as putting them in as game-like scenarios you possibly can and repeating it. So the decision might be slightly different the next time they kick. They might next one from ground level, next one from a handball receive, next one from a mark and have to go back. That's the way that players get better at skills, kicking in particular, but handball as well.
Sorry, Bucks, just if I could jump in for a second. Guys, all the people standing up the back, there's chairs up the front here and over here. So if you're standing up the back, come forward.
So I still got you in regards to that sort of stuff. This guy's brought learnings to our department that we didn't have 2 years ago, and it's really had an impact for us. So the one thing that's consistent across the league is kick rating, and that is comparative. We can compare our performance with the opposition's performance and individual to individual. So in that 2 year time, or the time that Jamie came into the program into the 2015 season, and then he's been with us in 2016, and you'd like to know he's contracted to go further, which is important. So you have to have had 30 kicks in a season to be eligible for this, for a kick rating. Out of the 33 that are eligible, 29 have improved, 2 have declined and 2 have maintained. And correct. It shows you, exactly. It shows you where we had got to, and some of that had been youth, and some of it were experienced players that were unable to keep up with the demands of the game as well. So there, what we're looking at here. So 214, we were ranked 15th for kick rating. Sorry, mate, you like this? Thanks, Phil. 2015, we were ranked 10th, and these are the top 4 average. So it's only a couple of percent, but it's a big difference. So here, top 4 had actually gone up from there, and top 4 has gone up gradually each year in kick rating. We've gone from 15th to 10th to 6th. So we're level with the top 4 rating as far as kick rating goes. And all kick rating is this is the expected hit rate, and this is how much you hit. That's all it is. So if you're kicking at goal, Isaac Smith shot at goal, that would have had a kick rating and expected hit rate of 60%, 35 out straight in front, no pressure, and he missed. No pressure. He was smiling. Do you know who he was smiling at?
Yeah, I know.
Sam Mitchell. He said something to him, he smiled at him. Yeah, not smiling 10 seconds after that, but no pressure in the form of physical pressure on him. But so he misses that. That's minus 60% for that kick, because he expected to hit that 60% of the time. He misses it. That's minus 60%. You add up all the kicks that a bloke does over the game and the expected hit rate and whether he hits it. If he'd have hit it, plus 40. With me? So that's how they work it out. A lot of detail. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Bad decision. It was flatter than some kicks, but yeah. But yeah, no, it's a bad decision. Yeah, it's becomes all about the decision. I agree. So that takes into account the type of kick as well, the kick rating, the type of kick that they're doing. So if you're just kicking long down the line for 50 metres, well then there's a different expected hit rate on a short 25-metre kick. Pressure against. So this is our ability to find time and space for the ball. Hawthorn have been the best at it. Whether it's kick or handball, they give it to a player in a better position. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so pressure against is a measure of the opposition's pressure on the ball carrier. Only the ball carrier and the bloke with the ball. So we were 15th in 2012, we were 10th, and we were 10th again. But that's high, and we went up slightly over this time, but the top 4 average, so even the top 4 sides are finding it hard to find time and space higher, the more pressure you're under. And that's so we've still got way to go with this, but we feel like we've improved it gradually over the last couple of years. Next one's kicking efficiency. So this is just pure kicking efficiency. It doesn't take into account the type of kicks. It's just do you hit the kicks. 18th, 16th, 6th. Top 4 average is 66.5, where we're above the average of the top 4. Just to let you know, if you think that kicking is the be-all and end-all, and we value it highly, we value skill efficiency highly, which is why we put resources into a guy like Jamie, which is why our coaches specifically focus on it and all our drills, etc. Sydney are 18th for kicking efficiency. Now, that's not why they lost in the weekend. They won all their games all through the year, but they are 18th for kicking efficiency. So it's not it's not the only way, but it clearly is. If you're hitting more targets, it's clearly better for you. We think it's better for us, so we're going to continue to work at that. As an aside, on a grunt element, Hawthorn 18th for contested ball, and that's been pretty well documented through Herald Sun, etc. So it's not. There's no silver bullet. We want to add that balance of grunt and shape. So we're doing okay there in the last couple of years. Handball efficiency, 8th, 14th, 9th. Talking about handballs, if we hit the first handball more efficiently, and we're not too far off, we're on top 4 average, but so that's just telling you that the top 4 teams aren't necessarily the best handball efficiency sides. But we're on top 4 average, but I still think it's something that we can improve on. If you hit that first handball, then that doesn't hit the ground, then you probably don't need the second, third and fourth. And that's what happened to us a little bit at times. Having said that, and you may not agree, our run and carry and our handball is a strength and a point of difference for us. When we do it well, and I reckon you would have noticed, when we're really running out of D50 and we get through an opposition, we look damaging, we look dangerous, we look like we're turning defence into attack really quickly, but we've got to work on that last kick to make sure that we're hitting a forward out the back a bit better. But it's a point of difference. We're not going to go away from that, because with a bloke like Adam Treloar on your side, that's his natural instincts, and we're trying to build on those natural instincts. So, and just to finalise on those last 10 weeks. So these are the top 3 sides with disposal efficiency, kicking and handball for the last 10 weeks. Hawthorn number 1, we're number 2, Geelong number 3. So I understand that there's a little bit of a lag period on the impression and the perception that we don't use the ball well. But it's exactly that, it's a lag period. Still with compromised personnel, still with some of our best first choice players sitting on the pine or in the stands watching their younger teammates go about it. And we had 5 players that were basically first year players in that round 23 game against Hawthorn. In that last 10 weeks, one of the best users of the footy, one of the teams that used the football the best throughout the second half of the season. Now, that might not sit comfortably with you, you might not agree with it, but the numbers will say that we were, and we still think that there's plenty of improvement in us as well. Let me go through the on-field positives. So our trades, we think that Howie, as a back, is basically, his second half of the year was all Australian quality, medium-sized back, tall and small. Adam showed, was picked in the All-Australian squad of 40. We'll be right up there in the Copeland clearly, and we think that whatever we paid for him from a trade sense will come back to us in spades. Aishi, by the end of it, to be honest, played better footy than he's played in the first 3 years of his AFL career. We were concerned about how he came in, but you've got to give these blokes chances. They've got to get used to their teammates. He hadn't had a pre-season. The expectation on him early and the focus on him from the Herald Sun was disgusting. The young kid was still finding his feet, and he did really well towards the second half of the year to play the type of footy that he did. Our leadership improved immensely. Pendles wasn't just telling blokes what to do. He had 2 or 3 blokes that were standing alongside him, helping him with that job. Steele's development has been huge. Tay's development has been huge. Kath and Brownie in the senior leadership group, less so on field, but more so around the footy club. And we've got a young group of leaders that want to come up and step up, as I spoke to you about in the Copeland. Developing A-graders, Grundy and Moore, and you could probably put Howie in that, you could probably put Treloar in that if they're still developing. Debuts, we saw Smitty come in and just did remarkably well. Seeing Mason come in from Anzac Day, made an impact straight away and played 11 games. Tommy Phillips, who had 2 cracks at it when the second time he came back in, played on the wing in those last couple of games, picked up 25 odd and looks a likely type, runs 15 Ks a game, knocks Steele over in the 2K'er. we'll see where he goes. He's only a kid. Crocker did pretty well. Rupert, last 5 games, strong-bodied. We made space for him in the midfield because we wanted his grunt, and we could put Steele or Pendles or Ads on the outside a little bit more, and that worked. And Goody, who played his first couple of games early in the year. Game style, strong back half of the season, more consistent. If you're looking at a side that we want to play, or that we think we play closest to, it is the Dogs. We think we've got elements of Hawthorn in our back half use, but our defensive and contested focus is probably more like Western Bulldogs than anyone else. We developed our resilience and belief over the second half of the year. We handled personnel challenges better later in the year. I can't tell you how significant the round 1 result was or the lead up to round 1. But I do know that when we look back at vision in reviews, and it's always better when you can take a couple of steps back, the intensity of our players, and I know that it's not just players, there's other elements to it as well, but the intensity of our players in that first 4 weeks in particular compared to the intensity in the second half of the year was chalk and cheese. So I don't know how much they were emotionally affected by it or mentally affected by it, but they were clearly physically off. And whether I could have coached that better, whether I could have coached that differently, we've gone through those review processes, and potentially there's always something you can do better. But we were really struggling that early part of the year. Results of the VFL team, being able to induct our youth and seeing the guys train out there now and got the opportunity to go and play against Footscray on Saturday, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to go and see the black and white stripes in September, and not just from a VFL team but from your AFL team. But they're the positives. We could go on the things that haven't worked, and I'm happy to go to that if you wish. But any questions that you have from that particular presentation or anything that you don't think has been addressed, I'm more than happy to take those questions on board.